We're coming to you live from our offices here in beautiful downtown Tallahassee. Luckily, we didn't wash away with subtropical storm Alberto that came through this week. So as usual, we've got some industry news for you, what's going on in the digital marketing space. We've got a special guest that we're very excited to have with us today who's going to show up a little bit later on to help you guys out. And then as always, we're taking questions. So if you've got a question for us about marketing, about how we can help you, just drop it in the comments below. Some of our team members are here keeping an eye out for those comments so we can help you out if we get the chance. Joe, you want to kick us off with our first topic of discussion for this week?
Sure. Interview later, by the way, can't miss if you're in the insurance space, if you're selling insurance. I think probably one of the most common jobs in the United States. It's like truck driver, like insurance. They're like two of the biggest industries, and insurance is one of them. We're going to have some good Q&A on that coming up. So news. Actually, the news just got a lot busier. And we'll lead with this because I actually think it's the most important. So every year at the end of May, Kleiner Perkins puts out a report by one of their analysts, Mary Meeker, which is followed closely in the industry, called the Internet Trends Report. And it just came out today. It literally just popped up on my screen before we came live. And so we haven't had a chance to review it. And we'll probably dive deeper a little bit next week. But, news of this, like it's a 294 slide or page slide deck that goes over all the trends on the internet. So Facebook growth, audio growth, you kind of name it, and it's covered in there in some detail. And it's, like I said, it's probably the most important report in the industry. And we'll do some dives into it this week and be back on it next week. But
who is Kleiner Perkins and why do they put this thing out for free that's 300
Oh, that's a great
long?
question. It is a marvelous piece of content marketing. Kleiner Perkins Caufield is a VC firm in Silicon Valley, and this is a piece of content marketing they do for themselves. One, I'm sure they also use the intelligence generated to make investment decisions as well for their fund. But it's a brilliant piece of content marketing.
In fact, if you've seen a presentation from Joe or I in the past 24 months, you've probably seen some of their research in there. We really like this report. We scour through it when it comes out every year. We've been using it for 3 years now, probably. So if you've seen one of our presentations, you've probably seen some of the research from this report. We find it super valuable, and I think if you're at all interested in the internet, if you're interested in digital marketing, you'll find it super valuable as well. So let's move on to the next piece of interesting news.
So the next piece I have here that I think is super interesting but not at all unexpected is it took about a week for Facebook's new political ad rules to start sweeping up things that weren't political at all. So what this means, and if you've tried to buy Facebook ads in the last week, you may have noticed this even when you're buying for something that's totally non-political, is Facebook is telling you you can't buy the ad, you don't have permission to buy the ad. The problem is the post it throws you has an error doesn't necessarily tell you that that's why they are stopping your ad from being placed. And so we've actually had a couple of clients working with had the issue where they tried to place some, in non-political clients, where they tried to place something themselves and couldn't. So again, if you're buying ads on Facebook, super important to get familiar with this process. You have to validate yourself, and so you send in your driver's license, you give them the last 4 digits of your social security number, they send you a thing in the mail, you validate that you live there, and then you're allowed to buy ads, and then you have to authenticate each additional ad account that you have. It's quite a process, and Facebook has done a really good job of telling people in the industry like us of what's upcoming. If you don't have a significant ad spend with Facebook and if
you don't just live and breathe this stuff every day,
you're going to be surprised when it comes up that you need to validate like this, and it's going to take you a week and a half to get your first ad up.
Well, and there's bumps in the road, right? I knew what to do, did it early, and they didn't send me my confirmation code, so then I had to request it again. So even when you know what you're doing, it's a painful process.
Yeah, look, here's why I don't like this. I mean, we talked about this a lot. I don't like the idea that Facebook is not only including straight political campaign stuff, but they're including any issue advocacy at all in it. And the problem is,
they're the sole person. They're the sole entity deciding
it.
What is political.
My take on that is when you drawing the line a campaign ad is actually fairly simple. Are you advocating for the
election or defeat
of a candidate?
Mm-hmm.
Every state in the country has statute that does this pretty well.
Yep.
The issue stuff is a lot different because the borderline between you're promoting an idea and you're promoting an issue is so thin and so blurry that you're naturally going to be catching up things that are just part of the conversation that should be allowed to go, but are being scooped up as, having a political agenda behind them.
Yeah. So I see a question in the comments because I've got it up here from Mike Williams. So thanks, Mike, for the question. The question is, if you're buying ads infrequently, do you suggest going ahead and having all employees get verified? That's a really good question. There's two things it depends on. One, if you're not buying any ads that would fall into this political category, issue-based or campaigns, then I wouldn't worry about the process. If you are going to buy some ads at some point that fall into that category, but very infrequently, like you mentioned in your question, my estimate would be just find someone at the office to be your designated point person. Like it's a tedious process to have everyone in the company, I know because we had everyone in the company do it, go through, upload their driver's license, get verified. But if you've got one or two core people that are going to be responsible for buying any kind of issue ad or any political ad, then yeah, I would focus on having those core people go ahead and get verified, because that's, when you're going to find out it's a pain point is when you want to boost a post, which you think is going to be really quick and simple, and then all of a sudden you can't boost that post because Facebook determined that it's related to an issue and now you're not allowed to do that. So go ahead and do it for one or two people in your office now. Do it preemptively if you think you're going to fall into anywhere close to those categories.
And don't expect to be able to do rapid response, paid advertising on Facebook anymore on a political or advocacy issue.
Yep.
Facebook's saying it'll take 1 to 3 days for them to manually review and approve ads in that space. So
Yep.
the days of having something happen, on a campaign or in legislature with an issue and then responding with a big paid push to capitalize on, say, growing your email list on something are probably gone for the time being, unless Facebook, and I suspect they will adjust some of the guidelines to what they're doing. But, right now those days are probably done.
Yep. I mean, we talked a little bit about this last week, but who I think this really hurts are the campaign staff, the people that want to be able to do something quickly for the principal that they're working for. I mean, it was inconvenient for us to do, right? But this is our core business. This is what we do day in and day out. So to have all of our staff go through that process was just part of the cost of doing business. Who it's really going to hurt is when, you have a staffer on a campaign or for, an issue group that wants to be able to, like you said, respond quickly and can't do it, or someone that doesn't have, the resources to know exactly what they need to do to get verified. That's where it's going to be painful over the next few months as we approach an election.
Well, it really hurts your email acquisition because
Sure.
the hottest email efforts are going to be the one that are following up on a current event naturally, and that's in any space. Like we call it a current event. If you're in the branding space, you're going to call it a culture hacking, like you're writing on top of that issue. This, for the most part, will prevent you from jumping on an issue quickly. For paid email collection. Mm-hmm. But that's life on Facebook now that, the platforms are always changing. That's just the latest change. Another change I think is more interesting from a marketer's perspective, and just, other evidence that you should never, ever, for any purpose, trust Facebook with your business. If you are in a business that is specifically, brokering connections with your consumer, you should go direct to consumer. Facebook has rolled out a marketplace for home services. If you pull up your phone and you go, there's a marketplace tab at the bottom where you can buy people's used stuff. For the most part, you can buy cars and
now
bags.
Right in between a car you don't need and an old cell phone from somebody you don't want is going to be the guy that can come take care of your yard or fix the
which I actually think is really useful.
I think it's probably one of the most valuable things they could do in that space, because I'm not super interested in buying someone's old cell phone that they don't want to admit to me is broken.
Yeah.
But I am interested in being able to have easy access to good deals for plumbers and HVAC professionals and lawn professionals.
And know which of your friends use those people and have. Now, there's already some businesses in that space that I think are going to get probably eaten up.
So, what Facebook did, I guess, in this instance was partner with 3 of the big ones that kind of
but it's a partnership like when the mob comes to you and says they want to invest in your pizzeria, right? It's a partnership.
We can give you protection.
Yeah, it's hey, you should share your customer information with us and your data with us. Okay,
Yeah.
because if you don't, we'll lock you out from, carrying on your normal activities on Facebook, or
But I
we'll
think-
just build it anyway.
I think what those companies realized, though, that people were already going to Facebook to ask for recommendations. And if you use Facebook on a regular basis, you will see this in your timeline. It's filled with people like, hey, does anyone know a good plumber in town? Like, I can't get this one to call me back. So, I mean, I think they're taking advantage of where this conversation was already happening. I mean, for some of those other brands, it may be the only way they can get back into those spaces is to allow Facebook to control some of the conversation.
So, one of the most common posts, and I think I read this in the TechCrunch article, one of the most common posts for people is asking about service providers.
Yep.
Hey, does anybody know anyone in, Tallahassee or Atlanta or Miami who does lawns or who builds shelves? Super common request on Facebook. So it's good insight on Facebook going into this business. But the other part I think is super important about this is we've talked about this a lot ourselves, is like, if I bought a landscaping company, if I bought, like a handyman service, I could probably 10x it inside of a year with the right investment money.
Yep.
Because like those services, it's usually word of mouth or they paper the door and they're in the neighborhood. But the fact is, if you were in front of me on my Facebook feed and when I was just really lazy, decided like, oh man, I just don't want to mow the lawn, and you were transparent, like you'll mow a quarter acre for $50 or $75, and I could push that button and get in contact with you and reliably schedule it, done.
Yeah, I think the second piece is really important there, right? Because it's not just about the marketing, it's about the management. So if you, like, I have no idea when some people are showing up at my house to do various things because like it just fits into their schedule however they like.
Well, dude, if Uber can figure out a way to get a
Completely
car into
agree.
the somebody can figure out a way to get a lawn
The second
scheduled.
part of that is just making sure that whether it's through an app or email or whatever, there's a good notification that X provider that you've booked on this platform, is on their way to your house.
But there's probably a big business to be built there.
100%.
On lawn service. Here's another one, car washes. Like, at home car wash people. If I was in that business right now, like I would be working Facebook really hard about my car detailing service to come to your house. Like, and I rarely see people in those trades and professions doing this, and it's a huge missed opportunity because what's going to happen? You'll have a semi-large corporate company, maybe with some capital behind it, come in and do this and start to eat up a lot of pieces of the market. In fact, I suspect what you'll see as a result of Facebook moving into this business, I think you'll start to see some consolidation in these markets.
I mean, you
for
see
home
it in other
services.
home service industries, right? Like the pest control market is a good example.
Yeah.
Now, there's some good medium-sized companies that have a big footprint into a local area, but then there's also the really big companies that have national footprints, whether it's lawn care in terms of fertilizer and pest prevention, or or just pest prevention within your home.
Yeah.
There's some really big names in that space that have offices in just about every city across the country. And you have some local providers, and I think those probably work heavily on word of mouth. And then in bigger markets like Tallahassee certainly has one or two. You've got some medium-sized businesses that have a really nice stronghold into their community, but don't go beyond that.
Well, pest control is unique because you can schedule the service.
Yeah.
And it's a routine service every 2 months or 6 months whenever you buy for. So that allows for some scale, almost a subscription model that in a landscaping you can do this, but like the carpenter that no one's buying.
Sure, on-demand stuff because something's broken. Is
Maybe
a
a
little
car
bit
wash
different.
it would work for sure.
Yep.
We actually got a few questions.
Cool.
All right, so the first one's from Sarah. Do you know what the parameters are that they're using currently that's catching issue campaigns? Example, promoting a blog post that is pushing a particular issue. Would that get caught?
Yes.
Yeah, almost certainly it would.
Okay.
But again, if there's paid advertising money behind it, right? So if you just post it, like this isn't, you're not trapped in these rules. It's if you pay money to promote it. But I mean, it seems to be all up to the text, right? So it's all up to the post text or the text of the article or the piece of content you're posting.
So, what they're saying is that they're not doing this with news. The problem is, again, you get in this line. What is news
and what is content?
If it's produced, like if the association or the advocacy group you're running produces a newsletter, for its members or to get its angle out, like is that news or is that now considered to be, political content for Facebook?
Yep.
Like, I mean, look, it's just more evidence that when Facebook was pushing these policy through, their policy team, like, just did something to get it done and, figured they'd work out the rest later. But, like, it's going to keep creating snags. And if you're writing about a policy issue, it's going to get caught up in the Facebook political ads dragnet.
I agree.
Another question. Michael would like to know who the third glass of water is for.
It's for a very special guest that is coming up soon. I'm sorry, Mike, it's not for you, but we'd like to have you on, so we can definitely set that up, but it's not for you today, buddy.
Sarah had a follow-up question. What if the Miami Herald promotes their own post to what you guys were just talking about?
All right, so this is interesting. One is, I really haven't seen a mainstream media publication promote its own stuff. And I think that's a couple reasons. One is I think Facebook kind of works special deals with big mainstream publishers that they verify and are known entities, and they get a little bit of extra reach beyond what, say, a small blogger might do. This is actually the crux of a big controversy with Facebook and with social media in general right now, which is, and I can't remember the name of the organization that is started doing the research on it, but basically Facebook discriminating organic reach between different types of media sources. So conservative media sources not getting proportional reach to what the same media source on the left might get, or what a more mainstream media source might get. Like Facebook, you can't underestimate how important this is. Facebook is now the chief arbiter in our country of what is news and what is not news. And like, to me, that is a worse situation than just like the Wild West, where some news is fake and some news is real, and you need to pick, like,
you need to figure it out on your own.
Well, is it a news service you trust? Like, the Miami Herald versus like the Miami, Zoom Press. Like, you should probably go with the Herald article. But so the Miami Herald, going back to the question of, promoting their own post, no, they don't do it. If I owned a newspaper today, we would start doing it.
The Washington Post is one of the only...
Is the best.
Yeah, it's one of the only examples of a big mainstream publication I've seen doing it. Now, to be fair, a lot of the leadership structure at the Washington Post has a background in new media.
Yeah.
So that is why they're doing it. So the Washington Post was one of the first news outlets to focus into the social news when some of the features just came out first on Facebook, where you could socially share articles before the instant articles where you have the black bar at the top and the little tiny arrow where you're not actually going outbound to a whole nother website. The Washington Post was one of the first that came into that product. So from the beginning, they've been highly invested in Facebook, and that is a huge traffic generator for them. So I know they spend money on it because I see sponsored content from WAPO frequently because I consume a lot of content from the Washington Post as well.
But because Miami Herald's big and well-known enough, it probably isn't getting caught up.
Yep, agreed.
We're caught up on the questions.
Sweet. Another interesting thing that Facebook announced this week, I don't know how many of you are users of Facebook groups, but Facebook groups are actually a really powerful feature that I think get overlooked a lot when we're talking about digital marketing. We talk a lot about Facebook pages and how you can advertise for those pages, but Facebook groups are where a lot of organic sharing are happening. There's really deep discussions happening in Facebook groups. I think about some of the groups that I'm a member of. It is not lighthearted top level content. Like, they're driving deep into whatever issue that group is about, and this can be anything from a professional association. It can be a particular issue that you care about, something that's close to your heart, whether it's dog rescue, whether it's education and school kids. There's a lot of interesting things happening at groups. So what the interesting piece of news is for this week with Facebook groups is that they are rolling out several new features to them. Most importantly, they're creating a customer support feature inside of groups. So a lot of groups have been used lately to either put your top level customers, or maybe sometimes your best donors will put into a Facebook group that is closed to outside people. So what Facebook did, knowing that there's a lot of interesting conversation happening there, is launch some additional features for the people who control those groups to be able to answer customer support questions organically and not with chatbots, with actual live people responding to support requests.
What is Facebook's play long term with groups?
I'm not sure I know what Facebook's play is. I think that they wanted to phase out the product, honestly, and when they tried to by forcing more traffic to pages, I think they got some backlash for it for people that really liked the group structure. I've been a group from everything from the kickball team I used to play for to podcasts that I listen to, donor groups for those podcasts. They're just kind of all over the map. I think they are going to try to treat groups, more like a community forum where you'd find elsewhere on the internet. I think they don't want to give up that traffic to either Reddit or to other forum channels on the internet. I think they want, even if they haven't figured out how to directly monetize those groups right now, I think they want that traffic to stay on the platform. And Facebook will tell you there's 1.4 billion people that are monthly active users of groups, right? So this is not a small group of people on the platform using them, and there are tens of millions of groups that are active on a weekly basis with new content going up. Everything from the vacation rental community to, again, a podcast donor group to people that are into a particular sport. It kind of spans the gamut.
It's like a 1998 chat room all over again.
It is, but with a lot more multimedia.
ASL, baby. I think the groups feature, you're right. They were trying to deprecate it because it is a walled garden inside of Facebook, and Facebook's thing has been connection, and you can just add people willy-nilly to groups. But I think what you're seeing on that Facebook platform is people seeking the exclusivity of a group. Wanting something that's controlled, that not just everyone can see, that isn't maybe a private page, that has a more public element to it.
I think the closed groups are where a lot of interesting things are happening because to get membership to those groups, you can ask them questions. Right? It can be, have you donated? Are you a member of this?
And you can put content in that is exclusive to people in the group. So you can basically use Facebook's platform to distribute content using all your familiar Facebook methods and buttons
that can't be shared outside of that.
So it's a way that brands and companies and campaigns can create a space to provide value that they don't have to worry about, or it will, but they don't have to worry about as much leaking out of that space.
Sure. I think we talk a lot about political clients on this show. We work in that space a lot. We also do a lot of corporate work, but a really easy use for anyone that's in the political space out there. For a while now, you've been able to take your Facebook page, so for a candidate or for a group or a cause, and make custom groups that are owned by that page, right? So if Joe Clements is running for president, we can create some groups that are spinoffs of the Joe Clements page, but only to select people that we put in there. So it might be Knowles for Joe, right? Or it might be, you're members of the high dollar donor club for Joe Clements' campaign. So I think that's a really interesting use of some of those conversations where if you're the candidate or if you're the head of this issue or cause, you can put out content specific to the people that fit the criteria of this group. They're Seminole and they support you, or they've given X amount of money and they support you. That is content that really can't be taken out of that platform, save for some really tricky techniques. It's an interesting place to have.
It's similar to email list or what a lot of groups do, where they have a specialty login, like a back end for their members, but you have the friction of having to remember this password and logging into a back end that's probably kind of janky anyway because it was designed in 2000.
And someone has to build it, right? Someone has to construct this
But
platform.
The Facebook group, I think, is a way of providing that additional value, that walled garden of content that is in the Facebook platform, which everybody knows and is familiar with, and is tested for now 13 years of what is the best way people want to pursue content.
Just a couple of other quick news items to hit. We've heard that YouTube's streaming music platform, which has been talked about for a while now, is finally leaking out to some people in the U.S. and a couple other countries. So if you're lucky enough to be on whatever this target list is, you might have access to YouTube's new streaming music platform. If you're a Google Play Music subscriber, I guess you've already got access to it. You get it for free. But just for those of you that are big music consumers, that's something that's going to be rolling out, I think, over the next 2 weeks. But as of yesterday, it's leaking to some people early.
Yeah, I just don't know what that music space looks like.
Yeah,
It's kind of how does anybody make money in that?
So I mean,
world
the
anymore?
artists don't make money,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to. It's bad for artists and good for the people charging for it, right? Because they get licenses for
Well,
cheap.
who's charging? Because Amazon doesn't. It comes with my Prime subscription.
So, but most of the other networks are charging for it, or they're putting an ad network in it, right?
Yeah.
So Spotify, you can get free Spotify, where there's an ad platform that obviously Spotify is making money off of, and then paying fractions of a cent to an artist every time a song is played. And then you've got premium Spotify. So if you want to give them $10 a month, they'll get rid of all your ads. They'll give you higher streaming quality music. But I think that was an answer to pirated music, right? These platforms all came from like artists and record companies being frustrated with the sharing of music online. What's going to be interesting to see now is that the artists are getting so screwed by the low amounts of money they're getting from these platforms, like what the next revolution, so to speak, is, right? It's probably good for an up-and-coming artist because you get exposure to audiences that you would never get before. But if you're, and you've seen this, Taylor Swift has pulled music off of several streaming platforms. If you're a big artist, you are not making a lot of money from these platforms. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you're probably getting really screwed along the way.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the music space has been around for a long time, but it never seems to have matured all the way into a platform that marketers could really. You have Pandora advertising, of course, but like even Pandora advertising, it is a sliver of the overall advertising. It's just interesting to me that we have all this audio consumed online. People are spending hours there, but very little of it in the music space ends up converting into useful time and attention for marketers. So much so that a podcast is more valuable. Like Alexa skills are going to end up being more valuable.
Well, so let's talk about voice for a second.
Okay, what do we have any news on voice?
I think we have some news on Alexa, but let's go deep there for a second. Why is a podcast becoming much more valuable than, let's say, a Pandora ad? And obviously there's more work that goes into creating a podcast, but you're a huge consumer of this. I know I'm a huge consumer of podcasts. Why are they so much more valuable than other places in the market right now?
I think they disproportionately produce value given the time we spend on them, right? Or the attention we have to focus on. You can learn a lot and be really engaged on a podcast in a 15-minute drive or 20-minute drive from home to work than you can almost anything else. You can have the Apple AirPods in your ear and be doing work around the house and listening to the podcast. And the content that's going into those is content that, like, 10 years ago we thought would be dead, right? Long form, complex stories on, a lot of them, the best journalism being done right now
radio,
is being done
right?
in politics.
It's radio. It is modern radio is what a podcast is. You just get to pick what it is instead of trusting a
even
station.
in the heyday of radio, there was no long-form investigative journalism being done on radio.
I think that's fair.
Like,
but, there was long-form storytelling
Sure.
and all of that. Certainly news updates.
Yeah, and look, I think because of the nichiness of podcasts that you can go into is like you can find one for every interest. We were just doing a call with a guy we're hopefully going to work with who has a podcast about tacos. Right?
Specifically tacos in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So you can have an entire podcast about tacos in LA and have advertisers for that. That's super niche, but it's super valuable if that's what you're interested in. If you're a foodie in LA, that's probably a podcast you're listening to.
And just a little bit of interesting news on the voice front. So hopefully a lot of you are Amazon Echo users. Joe and I both love our Amazon Echoes. Joe bought me my first Amazon Echo as a birthday present a couple years ago. I have them all around my house now. They control my lights. They control our entertainment center. They control all sorts of fun stuff. Alexa, for a while now, has been able to make calls on your behalf or reach out to people on your behalf. One of the things that Amazon rolled out for her to do this week is to basically make meetings for you and not just add things to your calendar, but actually reach out to someone that's in your contacts list and try to set up a meeting time for the two of you that works for both of you. So that's a really interesting feature. Alexa, I need to meet with Joe sometime this week, and she reaches out to you and finds a time
Anytime
that works
I'm
for
right
both
next
of us.
door.
Yeah, perfect.
So I have an interesting one here. So from an email I got last week that runs down industry stats. It had some research on total digital ad spend by format in the United States last year. broken down by amount and percentage. So the number one was search still at $40.6 billion, 46% of total spend. Number two, banner ads at about $28 billion, 31%. Number three, video at about $12 billion, 14%. So even video is still lagging in terms of ad spend on the internet.
Yep.
But audio was number four, 1.6 billion at 2%. So audio is a place where I think we're going to see huge growth in ad spending because it's so vastly lagging consumer attention at this point. I read some other research yesterday that 26% of American adults now listen to a podcast. Mm-hmm. So I've said 26% of adults are listening to podcasts, which are a digital platform, but only 2% of the ad buy is going there. That suggests to me there's going to be huge growth when the ecosystem is available. Right now, the issue with podcasts is there's no place to go buy across the network. You have to buy them all one at a time. Now, going back to voice, this is looping back to the start of the conversation mm-hmm. about the the Mary Meeker internet trends. There's a high point in there that I was looking at before we came live, and it's this. So voice technology is there. Like when you talk to Alexa, she hears you for the most part. And so here's proof of that.
There's some issue in my house sometimes with that when my wife tries to get Alexa to turn off the lamp and she
can't say it.
Doesn't listen.
She needs to enunciate.
There is some conflict in my household.
So last year at the start of 2017, there were 10 million Echoes out in the wild in the United States. By the end of 2017, running around, there were 30 million. So they 3x the number of Echoes in the United States in 1 year. That will happen again this year. We'll be looking at the end of this year at 100 million.
80% Echoes. Of those were sold on Black Friday.
Yeah, because they were giving them away for like $1.
Yeah.
But that means they're in people's houses right now, and
mm-hmm.
people are going to use them. I'm curious what the use rate is for an Echo after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. But they're out there, and it's not going away. And do you know how much it costs to integrate Alexa technology into a product?
I don't.
$15. You can build Alexa into any product you want for $15.
That seems like a good deal.
And that's not per unit. What?
Can you do that for me?
I can find somebody who can.
Perfect. Would you like to introduce, unless you've got any more news, would you like to introduce our guest to everyone watching with us?
Sure. So, Jonathan, come on in. So I'll let you actually introduce yourself a little bit. So we have Jonathan Romero here for us.
Hey, hi everyone.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, Facebook world. Hey, Matt. Hey, Joe.
What's up, man? All right,
thanks for joining us.
Instagram.
And Instagram. Hey, Instagram. Mike, this is mine. Thank you.
Now we know who the mystery glass belongs to. All right, so quick intro.
Yeah.
Pretend like the people just met you.
Great. Appreciate it. My name is Jonathan Romero. I work in local business here in Tallahassee. I work in the commercial insurance industry for a multinational firm here in the U.S. and Canada. We've got a Florida operation, and I work across the state selling property and casualty insurance for businesses. So been seeing your stuff, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
And Jonathan is actually our insurance agent.
He is.
The marketing tactic he uses is non-replicable.
Well, we can't talk about it on air. Is what it is.
So Jonathan is engaged to one of our team members here, Rebecca, who was on a few episodes ago with Matt when I was out. But as far as marketing goes, that has very high upside one time, but is probably limited to, unless you're a really ambitious man, replicating more often. So talk a little bit about the marketing tactics that you're using, that your company's using right now.
Yeah, so the insurance industry in general is very archaic. So we, from all aspects of business, whether it be marketing, handling and controlling data, we're still very paper-oriented, very brick-and-mortar oriented. There's not a lot of digital media tactics that are being used at my level, on the agency level. Now, if you drive a car in Florida, there's a good chance you're insured with companies like Geico or auto owners. These insurance carriers or companies are very much plugged into the social media world and using those platforms in a way that us at the agency level just aren't. Mm-hmm. But at the agency level, there is significant marketing spend, and so I'm just intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. We do a lot of traditional marketing, whether it be web-oriented website, really limited to custom websites, but mainly your television, radio, or paper, print advertising, billboard. So really haven't jumped on the bandwagon, so to speak, like many other service-oriented industries are, as far as joining the social media trend.
So let's dig in a little bit here on. So what do you find when? What is your most common, attribution? Marketing. What do people say? Like, hey, how'd you hear about us? What's the most common?
So word of mouth is, especially in this community, in Tallahassee community and beyond, is really the biggest lead generation source, right? So somebody has a good experience, a customer or client has a good experience, they talk about you and communicate, whether it's face-to-face or via phone. So that's really the most common way that we receive referrals or generate leads. It's just word of mouth.
Okay. And what is the paid media that's perceived to be the most effective?
Well, I would venture to say, being a millennial in an industry and in a business, a corporation that's very significantly more aged than I don't know that the type of paid advertising we use is as effective. But we find the only measurable advertising venues via television or radio. We get viewership data. How particular is it to our spot or whatever? I'm not quite sure, but that probably would be the most effective platform. And then the print advertising, we have readership and things like that, magazine space, which is probably even more retired than radio and television.
What does the ideal customer look like? So
that's where I think a lot of my colleagues who are in their 40s and 50s and even 60s find conflict with the idea of marketing via social media, in that the ideal customer tends to be a middle-aged person with buying power, with dollars to spend, whether it be a business or have homes, rental properties, things like that. Those are the customers, and the reality is a lot of colleagues and friends in their 20s and 30s just aren't quite there yet. So my older colleagues would say, why would you use a media source and outlet that the millennials are using when they're not your target audience? I tend to disagree with that a little bit. I think we're starting to see a lot of
I would not go try to sell insurance on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Just free piece of advice.
Okay, there's my notebook. I need to write that down.
It's being recorded, so
Okay,
you can
thanks.
just go back and watch
I'll
the episode
follow
later.
that
Yeah,
it'll be on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic. So I think a target audience, a really prime customer is a business owner, someone, there's probably not an age demographic tied to that. And if it is, it's probably ever changing, but someone with buying power, dollars to spend, and that owns a business. So have to find avenues where folks with decision-making power and buying power exist.
Matt, you got any other questions?
I think, what is the primary thing that you need to be, so whether it's you're putting a TV spot together, a radio ad, a print ad, what is the primary message that you're trying to communicate at first glance to a customer or a potential customer in this instance?
So in my industry, there are you put us together next to truck drivers, and I'd probably say that the stigma around truck driving is a little bit better than how some people view insurance professionals. But I think being able to build trust is really important. Any type of outreach or advertising, I say community involvement, volunteer donations, things like that. All of our outreach is geared towards building rapport. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of it's not as effective as far as reaching the consumer, or excuse me, the individual to the point where they make a decision on what they think about us.
Yeah, one of the problems there might just be, they get an impression of you, but it's a little while in their life, whether that's 2 months or 2 years, before they actually need something. But if you could leave them with a single first impression, is it local? Is it that you guys are in the community, that you're there to help the community? Is it trustworthy? Is it that the carriers you guys have are handpicked because of how trustworthy they are, how well they take care of their customers? If I'm, which I guess very recently I was, like, if I'm the person who maybe knows they need one of the products you have, what's the first impression you want me to walk away with? Is it safety and security?
Well, I think you have to trust the person that you're working with. If someone's making any recommendation about a service or a product, you have to trust that what they're providing you is valid, and is going to work for you, and they have your best interest in mind. I think that ultimately, whether we're communicating via advertising to build a first impression, or we're working together, on a business deal, that has to be consistent. You have to be able to feel comfortable that every step of the way, your best interest is in mind, and you have trust in what we're doing. So, ensuring that what we're doing as far as outreach and in our media presence is communicating that or building that rapport. That's where I think there's really an opportunity for industry like mine in the insurance business to exist on social media platforms, is if only just to build name recognition and rapport. There's value there. But I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
I did mention a lot of colleagues are in my industry are a little bit older than you and I, and 40s, 50s, 60s, some even in the 70s, still working hard. These are folks that grew up without social media, without Facebook, without computers, cell phones even. So these are folks that really struggle to buy in. And there are plenty of industries like ours who just haven't quite bought in to the tools and resources that social media provides. What are one or two things that I can take back? And,
Sure.
And that might be valuable for those people, those folks as
so
well.
let's handle it like this. Let's do the if I were you part, and then I think we'll cover some of those in that, like the take back. So I think a big part of this is, my guess is, what most people do in the industry when they're new to it. They get on there, they do a couple posts, they post some pictures from events, they get almost no engagement, they do it for a month or two, and then it just kind of drifts. It's not producing for them at the same rate, given the effort put in those first couple months, as just going and knocking on the door of everyone who will open.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my guess on that. But I think
the first is probably the look, it's not 22-year-olds buying. Like,
but
insurance.
everybody knows that, right? Because they're the same people who say that go home and are at 8 o'clock at night, aren't talking to their wife or talking to their kids. They're sitting at the dinner table.
I don't know if I agree with that though. Like, even though they know that they do that, everyone thinks they're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone thinks that they're the outlier, and I think the common misconception with
who do
people,
they think they're talking to all
that's a great question, but I think the common misconception is that it's only young people on social media, and that is true of like Snapchat, right? It's somewhat
it's
true
just
of
a billion
Instagram.
young people, and then them and their friends,
and just everybody's
It's a billion young
everybody's
people, and
taking
me and my
cat
friends.
photos
That's it.
and taking pictures of their food, and that's all that's going on. But look, the 55 plus demographic on Facebook is massive, and no, I do not think you should go get on Snapchat.
I mean,
and
the
try to
60
rustle up
plus
some customers.
is
huge
bigger than that.
on
It's our
Facebook.
highest engaging audience
Yeah.
for most clients.
Wow.
But let's go through the exercise of the if I were you. So this is a segment we like to do with people.
Intro it. What would I do?
We need some intro music for that.
Yeah. But Joe, so let's say you were Jonathan, or Jonathan picked you up. Go.
All right. So the first thing I think is, I wouldn't look at this as a immediate conversion opportunity, because you're just unlikely to convert right away. Because look, for us to buy insurance, right? Like, there was years of starting the company, of getting to a point where we needed, insurance and different products, and now we're buying like drone
Making
insurance.
terrible mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes, and now we're buying like drone insurance and some like exotic types of insurance on equipment and the things we're doing. So that's the first thing, is mindset there. The second thing I'm gonna do there is, this is what comes to my mind, is like, what is the content that you can produce that brings value, to people like me or prospective clients, so that you're top of mind. I think it looks like this. If I woke up and I were you, what I would start is I would start from my list of businesses who are already clients, and I would go and I would shoot a video profile of them that's 10 or 15 minutes of them just talking about their business, what they do, how they started, what that journey's been like, and I would post that on my page. I would put $20 behind it and target it to people who like that business's page. And I would do one of those a week, one of those, doesn't matter. But like in a market like this, or really any market you're in, if you're selling into a city, there's plenty of like local businesses with interesting stories to tell, whose friends, by the way, are the other local businesses.
Yep.
And so when they see like your company is promoting that business, like they're going to remember that. Like, oh, I saw the video that Jonathan did for you. That was really good. And in a lot of these cases, for the guy who runs like a shipping company or has that's not consumer facing, the best product for talking about their company you're going to have created. You're just going to have gifted them like a 10-minute piece they can show their kids or grandkids about what they do. And on top of that, you're bringing them additional exposure in the community and to their peers, and then everyone at that company is going to get in there and like and share it and comment on it.
Right.
So that would be my play there, and it would you could probably do it in a market size set for $200 a month for the ad buy fee, and then you can find plenty of videographers that you can get for an hour or two to put that together.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good look at it. I want to remind folks that if you've got a question for us, or if you've got a question for Jonathan, you can drop it in the comments below. We've got it live up on screen. We'll see it. Our team's here in the room, and they'll pull it for us as well. So if you have a question and you're watching, go ahead and give it to us in the comments. We'll be happy to tackle it. For me to take the same question, obviously it looks a lot like what you said. I think the thing that really sticks out for me as a business owner, like having gone through this process, is any kind of content that would have demystified like what the process looks like, right? When we went into knowing like, okay, we do this a lot, we probably need to insure this or insure it at a level higher than what we have. I have no idea what cost looks like, about what kind of paperwork I have to do, about what you need to know about my business to do all those sorts of things. And I think content that you're putting out on digital media that demystifies, and look, that probably is a multi-step process, right? I'm not going to watch a 10-minute video on like what the paperwork I have to do to get this done is, but step by step kind of walking me through so that at the end of the day, you are the guy in my community that has unlocked that process and helped me understand why this is valuable, why this gives me peace of mind and helps me sleep at night, why I know my business is secure. When you're the person that's done that, even if I'm not ready to buy today, if I'm ready to buy a year from now or 6 months from now or 2 weeks from now, guess who I'm going to call? Right, and even having like the in with being engaged with one of our staffers, like you said, it was a while, not because we didn't trust Jonathan, but just because like we got to know him and we realized he did something that we already had purchased some things in this space. We needed to purchase some additional products in this space because we knew and trusted you, regardless of what relationship you were introduced to us in.
Sure.
That was why we wanted you to be the guy, right? Like we knew you were going to take care of us and look out for our business. So the more you show yourself as the expert in that industry with content, I think other people that compete with you in town or elsewhere in the country are going to look at that and go like, oh man, like that guy must have people beating down his door because he's the guy in Tallahassee that can answer those questions.
Look,
for
I think
people.
this comes to an assumption, right? That you can't ever make, which is that and especially in your case, like for most consumer things, like people kind of know what a car is and why they need one, but like when you start a business, like usually your first interest isn't insurance. Like it's something.
Well, I'm not thinking about how I can get sued when I start my business,
exactly.
right? I'm thinking about all the great things we're going to do and the glory and the riches that come along with being a business owner.
And so because of that, like just having a place to go and figure out like simple like 5-minute videos, like what is it why do I need it, would be huge. And I think that can be handled on like a series of YouTube videos that you cut into smaller portions for social, and that's evergreen content. You can just run it over and over and over again. But look, I think just the how-to content is great. I think it runs out in the true branding you need to build something to carry over. And I think like a business profile or something similar, like it doesn't have to be a business profile, right? You could do something that's just like, about Tallahassee, where you highlight different events in Tallahassee that you're going to. That could work.
I think too,
just as well.
which sectors are the ones responsible for the bulk of your business, right? Where you have the most expertise. I don't know a lot about what you're selling, but I imagine there's probably 4 or 5 different types of businesses that make up 80% of your clients. And if that's the case, those are the first targets for who you should be going after to do a business profile or to talk about how you solve a specific problem for that industry, because you're already an expert there, right? You know that you're going to get more clients there because it's where you've gotten clients in the past.
I'll switch gears a little bit. So content creation sounds like a really a good opportunity. But one of the other things that really has legs, not only in the media world, but through word of mouth, is like I said, referrals. What do you guys see for really business owners like in my space or in other industries? What kind of value comes from using either sponsored content or presence on social media as a referral generation or referral conglomerate? Is there a path to that? Is there a program or some sort of recommendation you can make?
So you're saying referrals, like referrals from current clients?
Yeah. So referrals or recommendations.
Yeah.
You mentioned that about.
Okay, I actually have strong thoughts about referrals because of what a referral actually is. In a lot of cases, is it is a loan on my personal credibility with somebody. Could be another client, could be a friend, something like that. And so like, I think a perception a lot of time in sales is a referral. It should be an easier thing to come by. Hey, I've done this for you. Will you recommend it to so-and-so? But what you're asking, even if someone likes you, is for them to like let you borrow on their personal credibility and make the ask. So I think that's the first thing is referrals are difficult and they probably should be difficult, right? Like, but if you want to generate referrals, I think the way you generate referrals is
or recommendations or reviews even that others when they're ready can come and look at and can it act almost as a stamp of approval.
So I think it comes through, again, going back to that content example where you're interviewing somebody who's a client. Like if I go to your page and there's 10 or 15 of those, like, man, he's done that company and that company and that company, and they let him put them on video and put them on a site. Like, in some ways, that is almost more powerful than a referral. So I would think of that as like, now what you're looking for is direct inbound because that's how you make a living on it.
Sure.
And so I think to generate direct inbound on social media, this is going to go like old school Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook. You're going to put out 10 or 15 of those videos and like you're going to put some money behind it. And then like after that, like once every quarter, twice a year, then you're making the ask on the Facebook page. Hey, everybody, I'm looking to take on some new clients. Here's the specific industries I'm looking in. If there's anybody you can refer, please DM me.
So let's talk for a second about what jab, 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 right hook actually is, because I'm going to assume there's plenty of folks watching that don't know. If you're unfamiliar with the concept, the best synopsis of it is given by Gary Vaynerchuk. Joe and I got to spend a little bit of time with him a few weeks ago. If you haven't heard of him, you should. He's got some great books. He's kind of the master of a lot of the things that we do here. He does the same thing we do basically at SDS, but does it about 100 times larger than we do here, literally 100 times larger.
Yeah.
So the jab, 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 right hook content is that when you're trying to use these type of tactics to sell, you want to overgive on value without asking anything. You want to give, and then finally when you make the ask, whatever that ask is, it's buy my book, it's buy my t-shirt I made, or it's come to me for a product that you need to purchase. You've given so much value to that person through content, through information, whatever, that it's a no-brainer. That if they're in the space to buy that product, of course they're going to pick you because you've delivered value to them in the past. And I think that is a huge part of what the content game is. And if you haven't heard of that concept before, I just wanted to give you the background there.
Yeah. So look, I'll play devil's advocate on that strategy. if you're in direct sales like
Mhm.
Jonathan is, you probably have quarterly or yearly goals.
Yeah.
How do you balance taking 6 months, 8 months, like I don't know, it'll take different
Yeah.
times of different industry to build up to the point where you have the audience available and you know they've been exposed to the content where you can do that? Like, how do you balance? Like,
Sure.
I could just get on the phone right now and spend 2 hours asking for the referral versus should I be spending 2 hours on, like, you know, getting this video and writing this post text?
That's a really good question, and for me it probably comes down to a little bit of 80-20 principle, right? Like, don't stop doing the things that are working for you, right? Like, don't quit on the business lines that are coming to you, on repeat customers, on new customer pipelines. Like, don't give those things up. But I think you also know that there's probably at least 20% of the ways you're currently marketing or trying to get people that are fat, that can be trimmed off, right? They're not generating a lot of business for you. They're not generating good leads, whether that's dollars spent or whether that's actually hours spent in the day for you. And that's where I would start. You're holding in your pocket the most powerful possible device you can have to go communicate something to the world. It doesn't take a room full of gear like we have next door here to go tell a story to the rest of Tallahassee, right? It takes a little bit of time investment and a very minimal amount of gear to make that happen. So for me, it's probably 80-20. Double down on the things that are working really well for you. Cut out the things that you instinctively know are fat, that can be trimmed, and spend that 20% of the time or that 20% of the budget that you have control
and,
of
like,
over the new tactics that are
another-
going to pay off 6 months from now.
another thing I would do, I would add all of my clients into a Facebook group.
Mhm.
That way, when I need some, I would have Facebook like, hey, you can ask me, you know, any, you know, questions that are general interest and connect with each other. And then you can put out news to you just in that Facebook group. Hey, like, here's this new change to, you know, workers' comp this month. I wanted everybody to know about. So for your clients, you then have that recurring connection anytime you want it. It's better than an email list. And then what you can do in that is you can be like, hey everybody, you know, we're updating the reviews on our website, and I was wondering, you know, if you could post a review here in the comments of what your experience has been like with me. I'm going to use this for XYZ. If you have a nice thing to say, I'd appreciate if you would say it, and you know, let me use it.
And there's the right hook.
Yeah. But I think the Facebook group, actually thinking about it, could be pretty powerful.
I think
like, I just
Facebook
know
group-
as a customer, like, I would use that if you
Yep.
had me in a Facebook
I
group.
think Facebook group, I think email, I think there's a couple of tools you could do
Yeah.
to build that community, but I like the Facebook group idea too.
Awesome. It's fantastic stuff.
Any other questions we can answer for you? Anything you want to say to the audience?
No, you've given me a lot to take back. I think you know, for you guys, it's you know, I appreciate the opportunity of bringing me on and giving me some stuff to take back and to work on. You know, it's not all politics that you guys work with. There's a lot of corporate clients and a lot of good info that you share. So I appreciate that. And thanks to the viewers for having me on.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks, man, for joining us. You got anything else to wrap up with?
No, we've been on an hour.
Perfect. So if you've got any other questions, if you want to get a question in for next time, or if there's something we can answer in the comments for you, drop them below. We'll keep checking them throughout the week. This is a regular thing that we do each week. We have new guests. We have new topics of conversation. We're always going to bring you the latest on digital marketing tools, news on the platform. So I really appreciate you joining us today. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you. We'll see you next time.